My name's Deputy Inspector General of Police, Dr. Shehu, PSC. To talk about PRAWA, Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, we have a very, very good rapport, good understanding, and good synergy between the police and PRAWA for many years. It is an institution that concerns primarily on respect of dignity and human rights, which the police are supposed to be part of it. And also capacity building to the police to enable them to perform effectively and efficiently in conjunction with the fundamental respect to the fundamental human rights as enshrined into the Nigerian constitutions of 1999. It's very, very beneficial, and at the same time in building capacity and enabling the police officers to perform credibly when they go out to discharge their duties. The police is an organization that deals with all kinds of human beings. When they come across a police officer, they deserve to be respected by police in ensuring not only their security and safety, but also in respecting their dignity and human rights. So in a nutshell, the training and retraining we are getting from the PRAWA is to enable us have police that will function and discharge their duties in a most standard and acceptable manner by members of the public. At this juncture, I want to say kudos. Welcome to the Nigeria Police Force online training.
Welcome to today's session. We are still talking about gender and human rights. And today we will be talking about the topic, policing and gender-based violence. Policing and gender-based violence. Policing and gender-based violence, what are the lesson objectives? The objective of this is to create awareness on the issues around gender-based violence and the role the police can play in preventing gender-based violence. And what should be the expected outcome? It is expected that at the end of this lesson, trainees will be able to understand what constitutes gender-based violence and the role of the police in its prevention. Introducing gender-based violence, we would like to at least define GBV. There are several definitions of gender-based violence. One of the definitions states that gender-based violence is violence against a woman because she is a woman. But there's another definition which I find very interesting because it is all-encompassing. It talks about both men and women. And that states that gender-based violence is violence directed against a person because of their gender. So both women and men experience gender-based violence, but the majority of victims are women and girls. Gender-based violence is a societal problem and has its roots in gender inequality and needs specialized skills to effectively be handled. Gender-based violence as a human rights issue is prevalent in Nigeria and manifests in different forms. You know, in Nigeria, we have most often culture, religion, making people to do things that abuse the rights of others. And the society seems to accept that, take it as something acceptable, covering up such abuses with the excuse of culture or the excuse of religion. Example is in the Southeast. At times, you see some cultures making women, in the past, I think it is stopping gradually now, drink water used to birth their dead husbands, simply to prove to the world that they did not kill their husband. They will explain to you it's their tradition, it's their culture, but that is abuse. Now, gender-based violence can manifest in different forms: sexual assault, rape, trafficking, prostitution, sexual harassment, manipulations within the home, harmful traditions, dowry abuse, emotional abuse, pornography, early or forced marriage, widowhood ceremonies, denial of education, food, and clothing to girls, women because of their sex. In the case of prostitution, what we mean there is forced prostitution, when maybe young girls, young women are trafficked and compelled to go into prostitution against their will. Now, what are the contributing factors to gender-based violence? Is the issue of power. Power imbalance between men and women. Men, the society is patriarchal in nature. There is this attitude that men are more privileged in the society. And often you find out that our tradition and religion permit this. Men are said to be heads of the family. So their decision is the only one that can be taken. Women are not consulted when important decisions are taken within the family and even outside in the community, in workplace. Because of this power imbalance, some start having that impression that they are entitled to abuse women at any time they want. Now, the issue around violence against women, there's that tendency, to violate women. And that violence comes emotionally, it comes physically. And because it is acceptable in some traditions, under certain religion, that a man should control the woman. As I had given example earlier, where a man has the right to control the wife, to admonish the wife, to punish the wife. You see that some people abuse that and at the end of the day violate their wives. Now, there are several relevant laws and conventions that guide the treatment of women, and they deal with this issue of gender-based violence. Basically, we have number one as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Then we have the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW. We have the different platforms at Beijing. We have the Convention on the Rights of the Child. We have the optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child on the sale of children, child pornography, and child prostitution. There are so many of these laws at international level. Now, we equally have regional instruments that should guide the protection of women against gender-based violence. And one of such is the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. This African Charter on Human and People's Rights protects everyone in Africa, both men and women. Then we have the optional protocol to the African Charter, which deals with the protection of women. Now we have national laws and conventions. And when you come to national laws and conventions, we have the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We have the Criminal Code, we have the Child Rights Act, we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. We have other laws. Example is the one on NAPTIP for the prohibition of trafficking in human persons. There are certain issues with our laws that we have been mentioning here. Example is what I talked about, Section 51D of the Penal Code. In terms of practice, we equally have issues. We have issues in terms of not having accurate data of women that have suffered gender-based violence. We equally have accountability issues where we don't follow up to ensure that there's prosecution of those that abuse women. We don't even follow up with accountability for officers that do not perform their duties of protection of women. There are so many issues with gaps in the laws and the policies. But what recommendations are we making? We are making the recommendation that police should treat all forms of violence against women and girls of all ages as a criminal offense punishable by law, including violence based on all forms of discrimination. As a matter of priority, there should be a review of legislations where appropriate, with a view to introducing effective laws on prevention of violence against women, and other necessary measures should be taken to ensure that women and girls are protected against all forms of violence. Capacity of the law enforcement officers should be strengthened to recognize, arrest, and prosecute the perpetrators of all forms of violence against women and girls and sentence them appropriately. That is actually taking them to court and ensuring that there is diligent prosecution and that the court does the needful regarding these offenders. Then we should also establish legislation and or strengthen appropriate mechanisms to handle criminal matters relating to all forms of domestic violence, including marital rape. As you can know, in the past, marital rape, there was nothing like marital rape. But going by the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, a man can now rape the wife. And other sexual abuse of women and girls, and ensure that such cases involving women and girls are brought to justice swiftly. Thank you for listening.